A skilled swordsman who had relied on his beast-like intuition began to realize his strength had weakened. He continued to fight differently and with grace, using his years of experience and training to read his opponent's moves. When facing his grandchild in a duel, he suddenly realized he couldn't see her. He fell into despair until he had an epiphany. He decided to pass on his knowledge and create a fighting style, Ryugen Fugaku's Ryugen style, that could prepare one for fighting strong opponents by imagining their behavior. Later, a character named Saiga 100 tries to attack, but the narrator parries with ease and changes their weapon. They use Regalex Chestus, keeping up the roleplay, and continue to defend themselves. Regalex Chestus has 3 abilities: reducing damage when punched, accumulating a gauge, and nullifying damage. Sunraku utilized the Cestuses to deflect sword attacks and change his equipment. He teleported and nullified damage with the Chestus. Saiga 100 had many weapons, but eventually switched to a set of 35. She introduced a new set called Imperial 5, which was beyond imitation roleplay. In Shangri-La Frontier, some weapons can combine characteristics from different weapons, like the anti-blade. Saiga 100's set of 5 swords, all named Imperial, boost specific statistics. Adding another powerful sword to the set would make it almost unbeatable. Sunraku fights Saiga 100, dodging her 35 weapons and analyzing her patterns. He knows he needs a short and decisive battle to win against her. Sunraku reveals he has trump cards, and Saiga 100 acknowledges the markings on his body are different from the curse of Lucan. Sunraku admits that he is behind in fighting against Nightprowler Lucan. He explains that he upgraded his curse to Lucan's scratch marks, which disintegrates clothing after 3 minutes. Sunraku reveals he found a way to offset the curse and demonstrates with a dagger that drips poison. He stabs himself twice, causing his appearance to change drastically. Sunraku fights against Miss Sword Saint and overcomes her with his 1 trump card. He vows to make his equipment even better. In the game, the system allows for various types of counters, but it's difficult to execute them with a female character's build. Despite this, the protagonist, known as Sunraku, is able to accelerate and shift the battle's tempo to suit his playstyle. His appearance resembles a powerful Spartan warrior, with flames coming out of wounds. The guildmates are shocked as they watch him transform into a last boss character. Some see him as a chest full of valuable information, while others view him as pure entertainment. Despite his monstrous appearance, Sunraku's original playstyle is optimal and effective against his opponent. His movements even mimic those of his opponent's deceased grandfather. Kyogoku witnessed someone using a modern variation of her grandfather's Ryuguin style, but it was not someone she knew. Despite her confusion, Saiga Zero informed her that the person had nothing to do with martial arts. Kyogoku became angry and even held a sword to Saiga Zero's neck, but eventually calmed down when she learned that her grandfather had supervised the development of a VR game in which he was a secret boss. In shock, Kyogoku realized that she was the granddaughter of the true Sword Saint and the last to know. Only the 2 combatants could know about the clash of the virtual Sword Saint and the cracked and burned mercenary. Despite successfully offsetting the curse, Sunraku remains vulnerable due to his semi-naked state. He compares himself to an oversized ant, squishy yet slightly harder to kill. His weapon, Meiki, was neglected while Kinsho was frequently used. Sunraku fights Saiga 100, a demi-monster who is equally passionate about the game. Saiga 100's attacks are powerful and perfect, but Sunraku's understanding of his mechanics and use of the arcana of Fool helps him launch a literal onslaught. Sunraku believes motivation is the most important trait for any gamer, and Saiga 100's passion for defeating Nightprowler Lucan fuels her even more. Sunraku enjoys player versus player battles, believing it to be the ultimate thrill. Sunraku prepares to verify the potential of his weapon, Meiki. He realizes that his level is likely equal to his opponent's, Saiga 100, and considers the possibility of different statistics. Meiki has two abilities besides combining with Kinsho into the shape of the anti-blade sword. One of Meiki's abilities is a buff that previously seemed garbage, but Sunraku discovered its true potential. The other ability allows Meiki to change shape based on whether HP or MP is used for its activation. Meiki's true ability is related to successful critical hits, and it can deliver different types of slashing attacks depending on its shape. Sunraku manages to break Saiga 100's formation, proving his hypothesis that sword arts won't fire as intended. He delivers a powerful strike and is no longer afraid of retaliation, burning brightly until every flame is consumed. The opponent's magic swordsmanship and high-level magic is impressive, and Sunraku must make a crucial decision on how to react. He decides to go all out and use his shield's Exceed Charge ability, hoping for the best. Sunraku recalls his experience with a broken game called UIE, which taught him the importance of defining magic in games. In this version of himself, he dual wields and focuses on mobility. The main character recounts his experience battling a powerful player in a game who was a perverted genius at magic combat. He and a small group of players were able to keep him in check, giving the main character insight and experience in magic combat. In the present, the main character activates the Levin trigger Disaster Hand and unleashes a powerful attack, Exceed Charge. His opponent, Saiga 100, realizes she cannot win and uses all her swords to keep the main character rooted in place to cast her strongest offensive spell, Violence Thunder. However, the main character reveals his ability, Exceed Charge, Type Conversion, which allows him to absorb magic and boost his stats across the board. He turns into a monster and defeats Saiga 100 with a roundhouse kick. Sunraku's body still burns, but he can move enough to avoid Saiga 100's swords. However, his HP keeps decreasing and will soon reach 1. Sunraku is strengthened by Overflow and Dispatter's buffs, but even a basic attack could defeat him. Saiga 100 combines the sword art with the Holy Sword, self-harming to activate the Excalibur's ability. Sunraku is balancing curses and weaknesses, while Saiga 100 is the adversity-overcoming, holy sword-fighting, wounds self-inflicting magic sword fighter. They fight to test their strength and challenge Night Prowler Lucan. The battle is intense and impressive, but the only matter that matters is who will win. The battle became a pure clash of skill and will, with each swordsman waiting for an opening. Sunraku used his mobility skills to maneuver the battlefield while waiting for a chance to counterattack. As the time limit approached, Sunraku activated a one-time strategy and their confrontation began. The pauses between exchanges allowed for stamina regeneration, and Saiga 100 began chanting a spell. Sunraku acted quickly to stop her chanting and hit her with her own magic. Saiga 100 continued to chant and attack, but Sunraku dodged and weaved until they faced each other. Another lightning attack was launched, and the outcome of the battle would be decided then and there. To create a spell, one must combine random words to make a cool name and create a confusing chant to lull the enemy. Sunraku realizes the importance of this when facing a magic opponent. Though he is a physical fighter, he manages to close the distance before the enemy's spell is released. He decides to switch to Blue Rabbit Moon instead of a sword due to a potential counterspell and uses it to inflict more damage. The opponent uses their Overcoming the Adversity effect, making the battle intense and dangerous. Sunraku uses Formula Drift to get behind the enemy, but it fails. The enemy's stand-beat attack is countered by Sunraku's Levin trigger Disaster Hand effect. He manages to successfully strike the enemy, but their golden aura protects them. The battle continues as Sunraku tries to land more hits and avoids distraction. Saiga 100 assesses the situation and decides that it's too late to recall her swords. She uses the sword art, Solo, to deploy additional swords and pierce the demon. However, Sunraku slips through her attack. Sunraku then equips a second sword and throws it up in the air, using the Gale technique to make a mighty blow. The Holy Sword endures the blow, and Saiga 100 loses her concentration. Sunraku murmurs a weather forecast, and Saiga 100 is hit by a sudden downpour of weapons, breaking her defenses. The holy sword shatters and disappears, leaving Sunraku exhausted after his battle with the overflow status. He feels a strange pressure that is difficult to express, like trying to run against a conveyor belt. After returning to his usual state, he taunts the losers and heads to Wolfgang's section. Sunraku tries to run away, but is apprehended by strangers who work for the library and Sacred Shield Corps. They remind him of his responsibilities, and Sunraku begrudgingly accepts his fate. Penselton had arranged for Sunraku's capture, and the leader of the Black Wolves is defeated. Katsu and Ribe communicate in a way that Sunraku cannot understand, leading him to feel left out. Sunraku and Kyotimat have a tense conversation regarding fighting each other, with Sunraku threatening to use his divine punishment. Katsu and Sunraku pick on Kyotimat for losing in a battle, and Rei apologizes for interrupting. Katsu praises Saiga 100 for her fighting skills, and Riberio shows fear towards him. The guild Black Wolves changes their name to Black Swords and forms an alliance with Wolfgang. Sunraku is being transported in a carriage to see the Saint of Charity. He kept information about a unique scenario and associated unique monster concealed from the people interrogating him. Upon questioning how the NPCs know about him, Sunraku discovers he is well known in the player community. Jose, the leader of the Sacred Shield's territory, asks Sunraku to change their gender to avoid trouble with the cleanliness-obsessed saint. Sunraku complies, and Jose is fascinated by the transformation. After an awkward silence, Sunraku questions if the knight will stay in his current form, and she answers that she will revert upon death. They arrive in Fifthsia and are warned about heavy role-playing by Jose. After entering a luxurious mansion, Sunraku is introduced to Saint Iristella and transforms due to his limit of 3 minutes. Iristella asks for Sunraku's specific help in defeating the 7 strongest beings and offers him a quest. A poem from the Sword Saint was actually a farewell message from his grandfather to Kyogoku. She learns that the Ryugen style she inherited is flawed due to a lack of seeing opponents as human beings. Kyogoku plays a game called Tsujigiri Frenzy Online to train herself and someday challenge her grandfather. The game's harsh PK system is a shock to her, and she is attacked by other players. A new player named Sunraku saves her, and she screams his name in anger and joy. During a heated exchange, Kyogoku considers taking action against a certain individual. In a cafe terrace, Saiga Momo and Towa Amane discuss their group's division of responsibilities and a unique scenario quest related to heroic equipment. They suspect they have entered the same stage of the quest, which involves a fight between heroic weapons. They ponder the armor and power that the Holy Sword hints at, but its purpose remains unknown. Sunraku and his friend parted ways as they arrived at school, but walking together made him happy. He wanted to ask about the invitation to the Bunny Country unique scenario and Saint Iristella's quest, but forgot. He realized he had depended on Saiga Zero too much and needed to consult someone about the references left by the Kutanid of the Abyss, the creators of the Alarm Bell, and Wysash and Goldenine's words, all crucial for the 4th stage of the world quest. Rei seemed bothered, but declined to share her concerns with her friend. Sunraku nervously asked Rakuro to talk about something important related to Shangri-La Frontier after school, leaving everyone thinking it was a confession of love. Embarrassed, Rei ran away, feeling the burning gazes of everyone, including her shocked friend. Sunraku and Rakuro had lunch, and Rakuro sensed something was amiss as his friend laughed with malicious intent. Sunraku then began his great escape roleplay. The doll had encountered the red dragon, dowered Howl, and sacrificed its limbs and equipment to escape. The designated target was located in the Sigmania front line, a nest of centipedes. Trainer Centipede Gustav was also present, but it was faultless Gargantua who ruled the area. The centipede and the spider engaged in combat, creating disturbing noises, while the targeted dolls looked small in comparison. In a dangerous area known as the Sigmania Frontline, Sunraku and comrades fear becoming collateral damage in the battle between the faultless Gargantua and Tremor Centipede. Meanwhile, a creature named Eldranza, once hailed as king of the underwater world, met its end after trying to fight 3 powerful underwater monsters. Its remains were devoured by a parasite, resulting in the creation of a new creature known as Daizaki. Pioneer player Totori the Shimana stumbled upon an old elven forest while exploring the new continent with his guild NMM and became a hero to the locals. 2 giants, wielding oversized armor and weapons, stand in front of a dragon. 2 smaller white dragons cower at its feet. The giants attack the smaller dragons, causing the enraged dragon to fight back. The giants eventually decide to retreat, promising to return. Meanwhile, a 3-headed dinosaur breaks through the defense line of tank players. The coastal city, serving as the Pioneers' base, is being destroyed by monsters brought by the black dragon named Noirlind. As the dragon prepares to attack the Pioneers' vessel, the players attempt to stop it, but it's too strong. Despite the huge gap between them, Sunraku admires their opponent's persistence. However, the dragon's breath attack is stopped by a golden-scaled creature, causing the clouds to disperse. The black dragon is killed by Sigwyrm, and the Golden Dragon King appears. The king expresses disappointment in humanity's reliance on besting him. A unique quest, Let Us Go Forth, Our Destiny Lies Beyond the Frozen Void Filled with Stars, begins, which all players will automatically receive upon entering the new world. Amachiritsu, a woman in a white lab coat, speaks to Tsukuri Tsukuyo, a woman in a jersey, about erasing player data due to a childish grudge. Tsukuyo expresses her hatred towards a player involved with the majority of the unique monsters in the game. Amachi fears the potential consequences and mentions Tsukuyo's father's involvement. Tsukuyo aims to surpass her father by self-destructing and making the game better. Amachi leaves, and Tsukuyo grins as she anticipates the 3rd stage of the world quest. She loves dragons and hopes they will slaughter players. Meanwhile, Tsukuyo's shenanigans affected Tsukuyogi's stomach. The New World Information Exchange thread reports that Noirlind has destroyed Emiria's base. Takashi Luckshine states that a battle like that could not have turned out any other way, while Basashi Musashi notes Emiria now has no safe place to rest. Emiria saw a slasher symbol on Noirlind's neck during the attack. Jupiter wonders if the event is connected to a unique monster like Sigwyrm. Players discuss a green dragon named Brockentried and the potential challenge of defeating Sigwyrm or the other color dragons. The thread also discusses the armor plating from Triceros dino bread used to strengthen bases. However, players debate the involvement of Arthur Penselton in controlling information and working with the library. They suggest searching the bulletin board for more information. They discuss the possibility of defeating Noirlind and other monsters. Some members suggest contacting other races for information, while others believe it would take a mini-army to stand a chance. They also mention a person named Sunraku, who may be using teleportation gates. Suddenly, Noirlind attacks again. A bulletin board is dedicated to finding information on a player named Sanraku, who was seen with a talking Vorpal bunny. The board is relatively empty due to everyone focusing on exploring the new continent. Deep Slaughter recognizes the name from a past game, and there is speculation that Sanraku may be the name of a unique monster. The conversation quickly shifts to a Shurikai's base being attacked and a vice commander possibly leaking information. The search party for Sanraku may be formed soon. On the Sanraku search bulletin board, users are trying to uncover Sanraku's secrets and find him. Witness testimonies claim that Sanraku has been sighted near 8-Dolt. Users discuss a game called Armagiro, while Deep Slaughter shares information about a new magic that enables fast travel. The magic requires using over 1,000 teleports and teleportation gates. Users barter with Deep Slaughter for teleportation services, while Ad calls out the rip-off. There once was a unique monster known as Gravekeeper Wezemon with the ability to spam insta-death skills with no breaks and was difficult to beat. Sylvia Goldberg was a professional gamer with a similar playstyle to Sunraku's own, always treating characters as if they were herself. Ryugun Fugaku, a secret boss based on trace AI technology, was difficult to beat, but a fulfilling experience. Saiga 100's perseverance was admirable, but proved futile in battle against Sunraku. Sunraku is being targeted by a walking TS machine with calculated and deadly attacks. Despite the slow speed of weapon changes, Sunraku fights back with his trusty mirror shield. If he dies in Firstea, he will respawn in a different city, but he does not want to lose in front of new players. Sunraku engages in a fistfight with the bounty hunter Lutia, using his armor of Black Thunder to protect himself. Sunraku is the only player being targeted by PKs, as he has never committed PK in Shanfro. Sunraku comes from a family with a long history of unique hobbies and interests. He is not interested in anything other than playing video games as a hobby. Sunraku's sister, like him, is also a crossbreed of two lineages with interests in different hobbies. Sunraku does not view video games as a way to escape reality, but as a purposeful activity. When questioned by others about his relationship with Saiga, Sunraku chooses to keep her secret as a hardcore gamer private and protects her privacy. However, Sunraku is unable to deny any romantic relationship between him and Saiga, leading to suspicions from others. Sunraku's classmates seem to find him innocent, but their attempts at humor sometimes go too far. Finally, Sunraku's teacher reminds the class of the importance of living well versus dying well. Sega Zero apologizes for causing trouble, but Sunraku assures him it's fine. They discuss the antimony sword and armor set, as well as a quest presented to Sunraku by St. Iristella. She reveals a coup is planned in the future, and Sunraku may be needed to protect the king during his tour of the new continent. Sunraku agrees to help. Many players ignore finding magic in the Bunny Country rabbits and the unique scenario Invitation from the Bunny Country. However, this scenario is linked to two unique monsters, Goldunine, the Inexhaustible, and Wysash, the Immortal, and underground tunnels that they and their kin use for battle. Sunraku thinks the game's main storyline will be affected if St. Iristella, NPC, is involved. The world quest raised many event flags, and the Saint Shield's territory may make an offer to Sunraku to find out more about the Saint. Sunraku accepts the request and plans to go to Fastea to organize their equipment and complete various quests for a ticket to lead them straight to the new continent. They suggest hiding in the cargo hold, but Sunraku cautions against seeking such thrills too often. They plan to die properly before going and joke about their friends at Crystal Scorpion Hill. Sunraku is seeking information about the decayed Aradval weapon and is told by Wysash and Break that all blacksmiths are trying to find a way to restore its lost power. It is revealed that the guiding light from the bowels of the earth is needed to restore the sword's power. Sunraku realizes that a volcano would fit the criteria, but there are no active volcanoes on the old continent. They mention an active mountain with a red dragon acting as a lid sealing off the place. Sunraku is surprised to learn about the concept of former and new generations when it comes down to dragons. Break is asked to handle the restoration of Aradval. They needed to find the guiding light for Aradval's weapon, but leaving Break and Wysash together made Sunraku worried. They went to Third Rimmer, where they were chased before, but Sunraku thought her appearance would work to her advantage. She asked Emul to help her boost her girl power by customizing their appearances. Sunraku overheard players commenting on her appearance and power, and she also showed Emul her inventory ability. They arrived at an intimidating volcano, but Sunraku wasn't worried since weaker monsters wouldn't approach them. They planned to use inventory to reach the lake at the bottom of the volcano. Emul questions whether he is simply an answering machine for Sunraku, who acknowledges that he mainly uses Emil for teleportation to dangerous places. Emil is upset and kicks Sunraku down a slope. Sunraku sets off to retrieve an item, while Emil heads back to Rabbit's. Sunraku jumps into the lake and uses the inventory to replenish his oxygen level multiple times until he reaches solid ground believed to be the tomb of the red dragon Kreptocrum, which was killed by Sigwum years ago. The night vision effect was actually powered by Suzaku. Even with enhanced vision, Sunraku couldn't see through the darkness without night vision. The technology from the era of the gods made Sunraku's life easier, but the tactical war beast was slow and heavy. Sunraku cast a spell called Magic Torch to generate a light source underwater and found it to be a valuable and passive magic. Sunraku used a disposable magic scroll called Active Sonar to detect enemies and display terrain information. With the help of the magic torch and the sonar scroll, Sunraku located the flattened dragon and a possible way to pass through it. Sunraku used the armor to pass through the cracks, but wondered if the further down Sunraku goes, the tighter the passage will become, and if Sunraku would have to exit the armor. Sunraku uses the Indigo Holy Grail to switch his vitality and luck statistics before entering the depths beneath the volcanic lake. He finds himself in a stone dome with water falling from the ceiling and a mysterious broccoli-like object emitting light and noise in the center. Sunraku prepares weapons but puts them away to avoid agitating the object, which he names Broccoli X. He approaches it, but it seems to be in a standby state and may transform in the future. Sunraku sees this as the objective of his search and hopes to have a proper talk with it. A monster called Broccoli X appears before Sunraku. Sunraku approaches the monster carefully, testing if shadowboxing will provoke it. Any battle preparations alarm the monster. Sunraku considers alternate options, including groveling and equipping a Regan accessory that burns away in the monster's presence. Shadowboxing triggers the monster, but merely drawing a weapon without hostile intent is fine. Attacking the monster normally is impossible, and Sunraku must find another way to obtain the guiding light. Sunraku wonders if the game can read thoughts as hostile intent triggers the monster's alert mode. Sunraku approaches the monster cautiously, wondering if Kinsho's ability will help him get the guiding light. The monster emits a noise that could be Morse code. Sunraku tries to communicate with it and shows the decayed Aradval. Suddenly, the monster transforms into a magma butterfly and burns Sunraku to ashes. The monster's sole purpose is to accumulate heat power while staying in the underground prison. It compensates those who lack the power of their own with its own power. The big red wing returns to its original state and sleeps inside its solidified prison until the day it will be exposed to the world. The Aradval, a weapon of the past hero, is now in possession of Sunraku, who strikes a victory pose. Emil stares at Sunraku with worry, but Sunraku is elated to have finally put years of pain and suffering from games to use. Sunraku and Emil enter Break's workshop and witness a drastic change in her behavior. Break hits carrots with a mallet, devouring the paste and declaring her task to revive the Aradval to its former glory with a container for the fire. Sunraku offers to help and learns that the sword has an affinity for flames themselves, and the current furnace is not enough. They discuss what is needed to restore the sword's flame. The protagonist agrees to gather top-quality ore and later realizes his efforts are in vain. When asked if the ore he found is sufficient, his companion Emul insists more golden scales are needed. The protagonist reflects on a proverb related to the Sigwum scales and considers it pointless to worry about their deterioration. Emil annoys him, and the protagonist threatens to throw his sword at him. They discuss future plans, and the protagonist expresses his willingness to spend money. He attends a meeting arranged by his guild connection and is treated as a VIP. He meets Norman, a young NPC inquiring about a loan from the Golden Scale Company. The protagonist reveals a Lapisteria crystal star and overwhelms Norman with information to obtain as much detail as possible about the company's dealings. The two discuss the possibility of the seventh unique monster being a humanoid and tree hybrid. Sunraku shares his experience with a similar enemy in Loser's Woods and suggests taking the staff out of its hands to neutralize it. At school, Sunraku gives Saiga tips on Shangri-La frontier. Sunraku informs Saiga that their guild has secured a base and shares his struggles with communicating with rust and mold. Saiga reveals she tried Nephilim Hollow, but had difficulty with the controls. Sunraku offers tips and suggests rust and mold may be better teachers. Mold is receiving an overwhelming number of requests to teach his tactics, dubbed mold slaughter methods, which originated from Sunraku. Mold's association with rust attracts many seeking to learn from him. Saiga and Hizutome discuss playing Shangri-La Frontier together, and Saiga mentions that she may be going to the new continent. Later, Hizutome is interrogated by investigators, but manages to evade their questions with some dark history exposure. Rei is plagued by rumors about her relationship with Hizutome and is confronted by Yorihana, but denies anything romantic. Seiga invites Hizutome to play with her on the weekend and mentions the research vessel setting sail for the new continent. Hizutome is hesitant, unsure if they'll encounter tough opponents. Sunraku asks the group for suggestions for a cool name, and they offer a few options. Pencil Warrior suggests Brynhildr Baskerville III in honor of a fan mail he received. Sunraku declines Kyogoku's invitation to play a video game set in the end of the Edo period and describes it as an invitation for divine punishment. They discuss the game world, and Sunraku mentions that he has bought some unnamed things in Shangri-La Frontier. He later checks his funds and decides to strengthen his equipment and emules. They visit Rampart Forest, where Sunraku is mistaken for a monster multiple times, and they encounter a rare monster. Sunraku reflects on his nostalgia for the area. The protagonist reflects on how his encounters with Sunraku have been dangerous, with some being Pencilton's fault. They arrive at the first town, Firstia, which appears plain and unexciting. The player stalls cater to beginners, and the protagonist hears familiar words being spoken by others who have died from monsters. He sees a group of experienced players having a battle over a school swimsuit and questions what they are doing. The protagonist asks a group of players what they are doing and learns they are fighting for better clothing. They also discuss the threat of bounty hunters and the immersive type of gamer. The scene shifts to a lone warrior using skill and strategy to defeat a group of opponents. The players discuss the thrill of prolonging battles before one becomes a PKer and the karma system comes into effect. Suddenly, a menacing figure appears. The famous Tears dress-up corps member appears before Turu's group. The others express their excitement for Ruthia. Bounty hunters use dangerous weapons called tonfa edges. The players watch from a distance as the bounty hunters fight ruthlessly. Ruthia's gender is uncertain, but their skill is evident. The bounty hunter targets Sunraku with a fatal blow, but he defends himself with his weapon. A transfer request sends Sunraku a custom-made swimsuit, a blade-repealing swimsuit. Sunraku is baffled, but the players insist he make their dreams come true.